I was standing in the funeral home, holding my daughter Lily's favorite stuffed bunny, when my phone rang. It was my sister Courtney, calling to tell me she was moving her housewarming party to the same day as my 7-year-old's funeral. When I protested, she actually said it. She called Lily's death a minor event compared to celebrating her new house. I could hear our parents on speakerphone in the background, agreeing with her. I stood there frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. Let me take you back 3 weeks before that phone call, back when my life still made sense. My husband Derek and I lived in a cozy craftsman house in Portland, Oregon. Nothing fancy, but it was filled with love and laughter, mostly thanks to our daughter Lily. She was 7 years old, bright as sunshine, and obsessed with 3 things: reading chapter books way above her grade level, dancing around the living room to whatever music played on the radio, and collecting interesting rocks she found on our walks. Our house had jars of rocks on every windowsill, each one special because Lily had chosen it. I worked as a pediatric nurse at the local hospital, and Derek taught American history at the high school. We were not wealthy people. We clipped coupons, saved for vacations, and drove cars that were paid off years ago. But we were happy. Lily made everything better just by being herself. She had this way of tilting her head when she was thinking hard about something, and her laugh could fill an entire room. My sister Courtney was 2 years younger than me, and we could not have been more different. Where I chose a career helping sick children, Courtney went into real estate and was always chasing the next big sale, the next impressive listing. She had recently gotten engaged to Preston, a developer who wore expensive suits and drove a car that cost more than our house. Courtney loved to show off, always had. At my small wedding reception 8 years ago, she had announced her engagement to her previous boyfriend, right in the middle of my first dance. That relationship had not worked out, but the pattern of needing all the attention had never changed. Our parents, Richard and Susan, had always favored Courtney. I had accepted this years ago, or at least I thought I had. When I graduated nursing school with honors, they came to the ceremony but left early to help Courtney move into a new apartment. When Lily was born, they visited the hospital for an hour, then rushed off because Courtney needed help picking out a car. It stung, but I had Derek and Lily, and that was enough. I told myself it did not matter. 3 weeks ago, everything changed in the span of 15 seconds. Derek was walking Lily home from school like he did every Wednesday when his classes ended early. They were at the crosswalk 2 blocks from our house, the same crosswalk they used every week. A driver, later found to be texting, ran the red light at 40 miles per hour. Derek saw the car coming and shoved Lily out of the direct path, but she fell and hit her head on the concrete curb. I was at work when Derek called from the ambulance. I have never heard that sound in another person's voice, that complete devastation. He could barely speak. I ran down to the emergency room, and there was my baby girl, unconscious on a gurney, being rushed to imaging. The doctors were people I worked with every day, and I saw the look in their eyes. It was bad. The brain bleed was massive. They did emergency surgery, and for 3 days, Derek and I lived in that hospital room, holding Lily's hand, reading her favorite books out loud, begging her to wake up. The nurses brought us coffee and food we could not eat. Derek blamed himself, even though it was not his fault. He kept saying he should have grabbed her instead of pushing her, should have seen the car sooner, should have done something different. I held him while he cried and told him none of this was his fault, even though I was barely holding myself together. During those 3 days, Courtney visited once. She stayed for maybe 15 minutes, spent most of that time on her phone, and then showed me paint samples for her new house. Her new house. While my daughter was on life support, Courtney wanted my opinion on whether she should go with eggshell or ivory for the living room. When I did not respond, she sighed and said she would figure it out herself, then left. My parents came, but they kept stepping outside to take calls from Courtney about her housewarming party plans. I heard my mother in the hallway discussing caterers and florists while my daughter was dying 20 feet away. I was too numb to process it then, too focused on Lily to understand what it meant. On the third day, the doctors told us there was no brain activity left. They were so gentle, so kind, but the words still felt like knives. We had to make the decision to let her go. Derek and I held Lily together as the machines were turned off. We felt her take her last breath. Our baby was gone. The next days were a blur of impossible tasks. Planning a funeral for a child feels wrong on every level. Choosing a casket small enough for a 7-year-old. Picking out flowers. Writing an obituary for someone who barely started living. The funeral home director was compassionate, but nothing could make it easier. I chose a Saturday for the service, 8 days after Lily died, to give Derek's out-of-town family time to travel. I called my parents to tell them the date and time. My mother said she would let Courtney know. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. I was at the funeral home finalizing the program when Courtney called. I almost did not answer, but I thought maybe she was calling to offer help or support. Instead, she opened with this. I know you scheduled Lily's funeral for Saturday, but that is the same day I planned my housewarming party. I have been planning this for months, and everyone already has the date saved, so I am just going to keep it on Saturday. We can work around it. I stood there in the funeral home office, surrounded by casket catalogs and sympathy card samples, unable to form words. Work around it. My daughter's funeral. I finally managed to say, Courtney, I cannot change the funeral date. Everything is already arranged. The church, the obituary, everything. She sighed, annoyed. Well, I cannot change my party. I have 150 people coming. The caterer is paid. The invitations went out weeks ago. This is a huge milestone for Preston and me. Can you maybe do a small private thing on Sunday instead? Then I heard my mother's voice in the background. Susan, my mother, said loudly enough for me to hear. Courtney worked so hard on this party. Surely Benita can move the funeral to Sunday. We need something positive to celebrate as a family right now. My father, Richard's voice, joined in. He said, Exactly. We need to think about the living. This party is important. I felt something crack inside my chest. They were asking me to reschedule my daughter's funeral so they could go to a housewarming party. Courtney actually said the words that I will never forget. Come on, Benita. Lily would not want me to put my life on hold. She would want us to be happy. This is just a minor event compared to my new house. A minor event. My daughter's funeral was a minor event. I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. The funeral director asked if I was okay, and I lied and said yes, but I was not okay. I would never be okay again. That evening, Derek came home to find me sitting in the dark in Lily's room. I told him about the phone call, and I watched his face go from confusion to disbelief to rage. He said words I cannot repeat here, but they were all about my family. He wanted to call them himself and tell them exactly what he thought, but I asked him not to. I did not want to deal with more conflict. I just wanted to bury my daughter in peace. But peace was not something my family intended to give me. That night, the family group chat exploded. Courtney posted photos of her new house, talking about how excited she was for the party. She wrote paragraph after paragraph about the caterer, the decorations, the guest list. Not one word about Lily. Not one acknowledgement that her niece had just died. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, commented asking if Courtney was going to reschedule the party. Courtney responded immediately, "Why would I reschedule? I have already paid the caterer and sent invitations. Everything is planned." Patricia wrote back, "Because your niece died, Courtney. Her funeral is that day." Courtney's response made my stomach turn. She wrote, "Lily would not want me to put my life on hold. She would want me to be happy. Benita can move the funeral. It is not that hard." My mother jumped into the chat defending Courtney. She wrote, "Patricia, stay out of this. This is between my daughters. Courtney has worked so hard for this house and this party. She deserves her moment." Other family members started commenting, and I watched in real time as my family split down the middle. My cousin Marcus called Courtney heartless and selfish. My father responded by threatening to remove people from the family if they did not support Courtney. My Aunt Elena asked how anyone could prioritize a party over a funeral. My mother said that people needed to stop being dramatic and think about Courtney's feelings. I sat there reading message after message, watching my family tear itself apart, all because I refused to move my daughter's funeral. Derek read over my shoulder and kept saying he could not believe what he was seeing. Neither could I. Derek's parents, Carol and Thomas, came over that night. They had heard about what was happening from Derek, and they were horrified. Carol held me while I cried, and Thomas kept shaking his head, saying it was the cruelest thing he had ever witnessed. They offered to help with any funeral costs if my parents withdrew their support. Derek's sister Amanda called and offered to speak at the funeral. The contrast between Derek's family and my own was devastating. Late that night, my phone rang. It was my father. I thought maybe he was calling to apologize, to say he had come to his senses. Instead, he was angry. He started yelling at me about causing drama and tearing the family apart. He said I needed to stop being selfish and move the funeral to Sunday. He said Courtney deserved her moment after working so hard to get this house. I asked him, "What about Lily? What about your granddaughter?" He barely paused. "Benita, you need to think about your sister right now. This party is important to her." My mother got on the phone crying. She said, "You are tearing this family apart, honey. Courtney needs us. She needs this party to go well. Why are you being so stubborn?" I said, "I am burying my daughter. How is that stubborn?" My mother actually said, "Lily is gone, honey. We have to think about the living now. Courtney is alive and she needs us. Can you please just move the funeral to Sunday, for family?" I hung up on her. Derek had to physically stop me from throwing my phone across the room. The next morning, I received an email from Courtney. It was a housewarming party invitation, sent to me and Derek and copied to the entire extended family. The invitation had a photo of Courtney and Preston standing in front of their new house, both of them smiling like it was the best day of their lives. At the bottom, in small, elegant font, it said, "Please note, this event takes priority over all other family commitments this weekend." She had actually written that. In an invitation sent to everyone in the family, including Lily's godparents. Courtney was forcing people to choose between my daughter's funeral and her party, and she was making it clear which one she expected them to pick. I forwarded the email to Derek without comment. He called his parents immediately and told them what was happening. Within an hour, his entire family had RSVP'd no to Courtney's party and yes to being at the funeral. They were not even related to Lily by blood, but they were more family than my own parents. The next day, I got a call from Mrs. Patterson, the principal at Lily's elementary school. She had heard about the family conflict from another parent, and she was furious on my behalf. She told me that Lily's entire second-grade class wanted to release balloons at the funeral, pink and purple ones, Lily's favorite colors. The PTA had organized a meal train for Derek and me, and families were signing up to bring us dinner for the next month. Lily's best friend Sophie's mother, Jennifer, called and offered to organize the funeral flowers. She said Sophie had been crying every night since Lily died, and she wanted to do something to help. The school counselor had created a memory book filled with letters from Lily's classmates, drawings, and photos. Every single child in her class had contributed something. I sat in my kitchen reading these letters from 7- and 8-year-olds, and I cried so hard I could barely breathe. These children, these families, these people who had known Lily for only 2 years, cared more about honoring her than my own parents did. The contrast was unbearable. While this kindness poured in from our community, Courtney started a campaign on social media. She posted daily countdowns to her housewarming party with hashtags like New Beginnings and Dream Home. She shared photos of the house, the decorations being set up, the catering menu. My mother shared every single post and added comments like, "So proud of my baby girl," and "Cannot wait for this amazing celebration." My best friend Taylor, who worked with me at the hospital, started sending me screenshots. She was horrified. She kept texting me, "Is this real? Is your sister actually doing this?" I confirmed it was real, and Taylor started commenting on Courtney's posts, asking how she could celebrate when her niece had just died. Courtney blocked Taylor and posted, "Dealing with jealous people trying to ruin my happiness. Staying positive and focusing on the people who matter." My mother commented, "Do not let negative people bring you down, sweetheart. Your real family supports you." Then strangers on the internet started piecing together that the housewarming party was the same day as a child's funeral. They flooded Courtney's comments, calling her heartless, cruel, selfish. Courtney's response was to post a clarification that said, "Family matters are private. My sister and I have an understanding. Please respect our privacy." This was a complete lie. We had no understanding. I had told her repeatedly I would not move the funeral, and she had told me repeatedly she would not move her party. There was no understanding, only her refusal to prioritize a funeral over a party. 2 days before the funeral, my father called and demanded a family meeting to resolve this. I refused to attend. Derek told my father that I was grieving and would not be manipulated. My father did not listen. He showed up at our house unannounced with my mother, letting themselves in with the emergency key I had given them years ago. They found me in Lily's room, holding her clothes and crying. My mother tried to hug me, but it felt fake, performative. My father sat down on Lily's bed, right on top of the stuffed animals she had loved, and presented what he called a solution. He said, "Here is what we are going to do. You can have a small, private funeral on Sunday, just immediate family, and on Saturday, everyone attends Courtney's party. That way both events get attention and nobody has to choose." I stared at him. A small, private funeral for my 7-year-old daughter, on a different day than planned, so people could go to a housewarming party. Derek came into the room and told them to leave. My father stood up and raised his voice, saying this was between me and them, that Derek needed to stay out of it. Derek got right in my father's face and said, "You have made your choice. Now get out of our home before I call the police." My mother started crying, saying they were just trying to keep the family together. Derek opened the front door and waited. They left, but not before my father said, "You are going to regret this, Benita. Family is everything, and you are choosing to destroy ours." After they left, I sat on the couch shaking. Derek held me and promised they would never get another chance to hurt me like this. I wanted to believe him, but I knew there was more pain coming. That night, my Aunt Patricia called. She had been removed from the family group chat for defending me. She told me she had always known my mother favored Courtney, but she had never seen it this clearly before. Patricia shared stories I had never heard, times my accomplishments were minimized or ignored so Courtney could have the spotlight. She said she was coming to the funeral and boycotting the party. So were my cousins Marcus and Elena and their families. Patricia said something I will never forget. "Some of us know what real family means, Benita. Blood does not make you family. Showing up does." The morning before the funeral, a certified letter arrived. It was from my parents. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a formal letter, typed and signed by both of them. It said, "We regret to inform you that we will not be attending Lily's funeral. We cannot support our daughter's selfish decision to compete with her sister's important life milestone. When you are ready to apologize to Courtney and put family first, we will be waiting. Please know that we are withdrawing the $500 we initially offered for funeral expenses, as we do not feel comfortable supporting this event." I read it 3 times before the words made sense. My parents were not coming to their granddaughter's funeral. They were calling me selfish. They wanted an apology, and they were taking back money they had promised to help bury their grandchild. Derek found me on the kitchen floor, holding the letter, unable to cry anymore because I had no tears left. He read the letter, and his face went pale. He called his parents, and within an hour, they had transferred money to cover anything we needed. Carol came over, and helped me get through the rest of the day. I do not remember most of it. I was numb. The morning of the funeral arrived, and I woke up wishing I could go back to sleep and never wake up. Derek helped me get dressed in the black dress I had bought for the occasion. The house felt wrong without Lily's morning chatter, without her singing in the shower or arguing about what to wear to school. The silence was suffocating. I went into Lily's room one last time before we left for the church. Everything was exactly as she had left it. Books scattered across her desk, half-finished drawings of horses and rainbows, her rock collection arranged on the windowsill by size and color. I sat on her bed and breathed in the smell of her strawberry shampoo that still clung to her pillow. Derek found me there, and we held each other and cried until his parents gently told us it was time to go. Carol and Thomas drove us to the church because neither Derek nor I could function well enough to drive. Carol had brought tissues and water bottles. Thomas said a quiet prayer for strength as we pulled into the church parking lot. I looked at the building and thought about how wrong it was that I was here, that any of this was happening. The church was packed. Over 300 people had come. I saw Lily's entire second-grade class sitting in the front rows with their parents and teachers. I saw neighbors we had known for years, my coworkers from the hospital, Derek's students from the high school. The local librarian was there because Lily had visited the library every Saturday morning without fail. Her soccer coach and all her teammates wore their jerseys. People I barely knew had come because they had heard Lily's story and wanted to pay respects. But the seats where my parents should have been sitting were empty. So were the seats for Courtney and the family members who had sided with her. Those empty chairs felt like an open wound that everyone could see. Mrs. Patterson spoke first. She talked about Lily's curiosity, how she always asked questions and wanted to understand everything. She told a story about Lily spending an entire recess examining a caterpillar, refusing to go play until she had seen it crawl across every inch of the sidewalk. The whole church laughed and cried at the same time. Jennifer read a letter that Sophie had written to her best friend. Sophie wrote, "Lily was the nicest person I ever met. She always shared her snacks and let me borrow her markers. She made me laugh every day. I miss her so much, and I wish she did not have to go to heaven yet." The letter ended with, "I hope heaven has a good library, because Lily really loves books." Derek gave a eulogy, but he broke down halfway through. He talked about how Lily would climb into our bed every Sunday morning and read to us from whatever chapter book she was obsessed with that week. He talked about her terrible jokes that never made sense but always made us laugh anyway. He talked about teaching her to ride a bike and how proud she was when she finally did it without training wheels. He could barely get through it. And I sat in the front row crying so hard I thought I would break apart. Aunt Patricia spoke about the joy Lily brought to every family gathering, how she would perform elaborate plays for everyone using her stuffed animals as actors. She talked about Lily's kindness and her huge heart. She did not mention my parents or Courtney, but everyone knew who was missing. Then it was my turn to speak. Taylor had to help me walk to the microphone because my legs barely worked. I stood there looking at all these people who had loved my daughter, and I could barely form words. I finally managed to say, "Lily was pure love. She deserved a family who would show up for her. Thank you all for being here." It was pointed. Everyone knew exactly what I meant. The people who should have been there had chosen a party instead. The service was beautiful and devastating. 7-year-olds should not have funerals. Children should not die. The entire community wept together, and I felt held by their grief and their love in a way I had never experienced before. At the cemetery, we laid Lily to rest in a plot under a large oak tree. The children released balloons, pink and purple, and we all watched them float up into the clear Saturday sky. At the last moment, I placed Lily's stuffed bunny in the casket with her. I could not let her be alone. I whispered goodbye to my baby girl, and then Derek held me as I collapsed. I could not stand anymore. I could not hold myself together. The crowd surrounded us with so much love and support. Strangers who had come because they heard Lily's story offered condolences. One woman with tears streaming down her face said, "I am a mother. When I heard what happened, I had to be here. I am so sorry for your loss." The whole town had shown up for Lily. Everyone except my own parents and sister. After the burial, there was a reception at the church hall. People shared memories of Lily, told stories, looked at photos. Someone showed me their phone, and on the screen was a social media post from Courtney's housewarming party happening right at that moment across town. The photo showed Courtney and Preston cutting a red ribbon in front of their house. My parents were in the photo, both of them beaming. My mother was wearing a bright yellow dress and a party hat. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with the people who matter most." The timestamp showed it had been posted 20 minutes ago, right during Lily's burial. My mother had been putting on a party hat while I was putting my daughter in the ground. Taylor saw me looking at the photo and tried to take my phone, but I had already seen it. The image was burned into my brain, my mother in a party hat, smiling, while her granddaughter was being buried. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text in a group chat that apparently still included me. My mother had written, "Having the most wonderful time at Courtney's party. The house is gorgeous. Wish everyone could be here to celebrate." There was a photo attached, showing the buffet table loaded with food, decorations everywhere, people laughing with champagne glasses. My father was in the photo, holding a glass, mid-toast. Another text from my mother came through. "Courtney says she might forgive you eventually if you apologize." Then Courtney added to the chat, "The party is amazing. So glad we did not let negativity ruin it." They were taunting me. During my daughter's funeral reception, they were sending me photos from a party and demanding I apologize. Derek saw the messages over my shoulder and took my phone away from me, but the damage was done. I realized in that moment that this was not just favoritism or poor priorities. This was calculated cruelty. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were punishing me for not giving Courtney what she wanted. Something inside me broke, but instead of shattering into pieces, it hardened into something else, something stronger. I was done crying over people who had never truly loved me. The week after the funeral was the hardest of my life. Derek and I tried to return to some kind of normal routine, but nothing was normal. The house was too quiet without Lily's laughter, without her footsteps running down the hallway, without her voice calling for us. We went to grief counseling. We attended support groups for parents who had lost children. We set up a donation fund in Lily's name at her school. Cards and flowers kept arriving from the community. Teachers, neighbors, parents of Lily's classmates, even people we did not know sent sympathy cards with heartfelt messages. But from my parents and Courtney, there was nothing. No apology, no acknowledgement, complete silence. I made the mistake of checking social media one time. My mother had posted over 50 photos from the housewarming party. One caption read, "Best day ever with my favorite daughter." Another said, "So blessed to celebrate this amazing milestone with Courtney." Not one mention of Lily, not one acknowledgement that she had missed her granddaughter's funeral. I deleted all my social media apps after that. I could not handle it. I could barely eat or sleep. Derek took time off work to take care of me because I was not functioning. His parents visited every day, bringing meals we could not taste, sitting with us in silence, just being there. The contrast between his family and mine was a wound that would not stop bleeding. 2 weeks after the funeral, a package arrived at our door. It was from my parents. Inside were Lily's Christmas and birthday gifts that they had apparently bought months in advance. A bike she had wanted, books, art supplies, a science kit, all the things Lily would have loved. There was a note on top. "We thought you would want these since we will not be celebrating holidays together anymore. This is what happens when you choose spite over family. We raised you better than this, Benita." I opened the gifts alone in Lily's room. The bike still had the price tag attached. It was purple, with white streamers on the handlebars. Exactly what Lily had asked for. I pictured her face if she had gotten it for Christmas. How she would have screamed with joy and insisted on writing it immediately, even if it was snowing. Derek found me surrounded by unwrapped gifts, crying. He read the note, and his face went dark, with an anger I rarely saw from him. He said, "Enough. We are not letting them hurt you anymore, Benita. We are done with them." That afternoon, my friend Taylor came over with her husband, Marcus, who worked in commercial real estate. Taylor said she had been doing some digging because something about Courtney's desperation to have that party did not make sense. What she found explained everything. Preston's development company was under federal investigation for fraud. He had been using investor money to fund his personal lifestyle, including the new house. The company was over-leveraged and facing bankruptcy. Preston had needed the housewarming party to impress investors and convince them everything was fine to keep the money flowing long enough to cover his tracks. Courtney had known all of this. The party was not about celebration. It was about maintaining a facade to protect Preston's crumbling empire. That was why she had refused to reschedule, why she had been so desperate. She had sacrificed her niece's funeral to help her fiancé commit fraud. I sat there processing this information. It did not excuse anything, but it explained the cruelty. Courtney had been willing to do anything, hurt anyone, to protect her lifestyle and her relationship with a man who was a criminal. Something crystallized in my mind in that moment. I had spent my entire life trying to win my parents' love, trying to be good enough, accomplished enough, worthy enough. Every achievement, every success, every attempt to make them proud. It had never been enough, because the problem was not me. The problem was that they had chosen favorites before I was even old enough to understand what that meant, and nothing I did would ever change it. But this, choosing a party over a funeral, choosing a con artist's social event over their granddaughter's burial, this was beyond favoritism. This was a choice that could never be undone. A line had been crossed that I would never allow them to cross back over. I made a decision right there. I would not chase their approval anymore. I would not apologize for refusing to move my daughter's funeral. I would not reconcile or forgive. I would cut them out of my life completely and build something meaningful with the people who had actually shown up for Lily and for me. Derek supported me completely. His parents supported me. Taylor and her husband supported me. Aunt Patricia and cousins Marcus and Elena supported me. I had family, just not the one I was born into. Then the lawyer called about Lily's wrongful death lawsuit against the driver who had killed her. The settlement was substantial, $250,000. The lawyer asked what I wanted to do with the money. I thought about the community that had surrounded us with love. I thought about Lily's school and her classmates and teachers who had honored her memory. I thought about the families in the grief support group who were struggling to pay for funerals and therapy and all the costs that come with losing a child. And I knew exactly what to do. I would create something permanent, something that would help other people and honor Lily in a way that mattered, something my parents could never touch or take credit for, something that would prove I did not need their approval or their presence to do something meaningful. This was the moment I stopped being a victim and became something else. Someone who fought back. I used the settlement money to establish the Lily Memorial Foundation. The mission was simple: provide grief support and financial assistance to families who had lost children. I partnered with Lily's school to create a reading program in her name, donating books to underfunded schools across the state. I set up 3 full scholarships for children who loved reading the way Lily had, kids who might not otherwise afford college. The foundation launched with a community event at Lily's school 6 months after her death. Local news covered it. They interviewed me about Lily and about the foundation's mission. I talked about the importance of showing up for grieving families, about being present in people's pain instead of asking them to move it to a more convenient time. I never mentioned my parents or Courtney by name, but anyone who knew our story understood exactly what I meant. The interview went viral, first locally, then regionally. The video was shared thousands of times. Donations poured in from complete strangers who were moved by Lily's story and wanted to help other families. Within 2 months, the foundation had helped 15 families with funeral costs and grief counseling. We had donated over 3,000 books to schools. The scholarships were fully funded for the next 5 years. My mother saw the news coverage, and she was furious. She called me for the first time in months. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She started yelling immediately. "How dare you use Lily's death for publicity? How dare you make our family look bad? People are asking me questions, and I do not know what to say." I stayed calm. I said, "I am honoring my daughter. What did you do?" "Oh, right, you went to a party." She sputtered, tried to guilt-trip me, said the family missed me. Then she pivoted. "We want to reconcile, Benita. We made some mistakes, but we are still your parents. We still love you." I laughed. Actually laughed. I said, "You chose a housewarming party over your granddaughter's funeral. You sent me a letter disowning me. You texted me photos from that party while I was burying my child. There is no reconciliation from that." She started crying, playing the victim like she always did. "Your father and I thought you would reschedule." "It was a misunderstanding," I said. "You sent me a certified letter. You withdrew funeral money. You posted photos with captions about your favorite daughter while Lily was being buried. There was no misunderstanding. You made a choice." My father grabbed the phone. He was angry, demanding I stop embarrassing the family, telling me I was being dramatic and holding grudges. I let him talk until he ran out of steam, and then I said, "The only people who should be embarrassed are you. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked their numbers. Then I blocked them on every possible platform. It felt powerful, like taking control of my own life for the first time. A month later, news broke about Preston's development company. Federal investigation for fraud and embezzlement. The house went into foreclosure. Preston was arrested and held without bail. Courtney's engagement ended immediately. She lost everything. My mother called from a different number, leaving voicemails begging me to help Courtney financially. She said Courtney was going through a hard time and needed family support. I listened to one voicemail and then blocked that number too. My mother sent emails. "Your sister did not do anything wrong. She is a victim in this. Please help her. She needs you." I replied once, "Like I needed family at my daughter's funeral?" Then I blocked her email. My father tried to reach Derek at his school. Derek told him to never contact us again and reported it to the school administration as harassment. The attempts to manipulate us continued for weeks, but we shut down every avenue. 8 months after Lily's death, Aunt Patricia hosted a family dinner. She invited everyone except my parents and Courtney. It was for the family members who had attended Lily's funeral, who had chosen what was right over what was convenient. Marcus and Elena came with their families. Other cousins and aunts and uncles, who I had not seen in years, attended. We gathered not to rehash the pain, but to celebrate the foundation and to support each other. Patricia told me she was proud of me, that cutting off my parents was the right choice. Marcus shared that he had completely cut off contact with my father. Elena said my mother had tried to paint me as the villain in the family split, but no one believed it because they had all witnessed the cruelty firsthand. The family had permanently fractured. But the side I was on, the side that valued compassion over convenience, was the side I wanted to be on. My parents were now isolated, avoided at family events, known as the grandparents who had skipped their grandchild's funeral for a party. Their reputation in the extended family was destroyed, and they had done it to themselves. 1 year after Courtney's disaster party, I received a message request on social media from someone named Madison. She said she had been friends with Courtney and had attended the housewarming party. She wanted to meet with me. I was suspicious but agreed to meet at a public coffee shop. Madison was in her early 30s, well-dressed, clearly uncomfortable. She told me she had been carrying guilt for a year and could not take it anymore. At the party, she had overheard Courtney talking to a group of her friends. Courtney had said, and Madison quoted her directly, "I knew Benita would cave and move the funeral. She always does what I want. She is weak like that." When someone at the party mentioned Lily, Courtney had waved her hand dismissively and said, "Kids die every day. Life goes on. Benita needs to get over it and stop making everything about her." Madison said my mother had been standing right there. Susan had laughed and said, "Benita has always been too sensitive. She will come around." Madison had been so horrified that she left the party immediately. She said she had recorded part of the conversation on her phone because she could not believe what she was hearing. She showed me the audio file. I put in my earbuds and listened. I heard Courtney's voice, callous and cruel, dismissing my daughter's death like it was nothing. I heard my mother laughing, mocking my grief. The recording was 90 seconds long, and it contained proof of exactly who these people were. Madison asked me what I wanted her to do with the recording. She said she would give it to me or delete it, whatever I wanted. She just needed to confess what she knew because the guilt was eating her alive. I sat in that coffee shop holding audio proof of my family's cruelty, and I had a choice to make. I took the recording from Madison and thanked her for her honesty. I told her I knew it took courage to come forward, and I appreciated it. Then I went home and sat with that audio file for 3 days. I listened to it over and over, hearing my sister's voice dismiss my daughter's life, hearing my mother laugh at my pain. Part of me wanted to release it publicly. I could destroy their reputations completely. I could make sure everyone knew exactly who they were. Derek said he would support whatever I decided. Taylor encouraged me to burn them to the ground. They deserved it after what they had done. But as I sat in Lily's room, surrounded by her books and her rock collection and her drawings, I realized something. I did not need revenge. I did not need them to publicly acknowledge what they had done. I did not need an apology or validation or anything from them at all. Their cruelty had already revealed who they were. The people who mattered had already seen it. My extended family knew. My community knew. Everyone who had been at that funeral knew that my parents had chosen a party over their granddaughter. That truth was already out there, and it had already isolated them from everyone who had any decency. I kept the recording as insurance, saved it in multiple places in case I ever needed it, but I chose not to use it. I chose peace over vengeance. That was my power, not theirs. 1 year after Lily's death, the foundation hosted a major anniversary event. We had helped over 50 families with grief support and counseling. We had provided financial assistance for funeral costs to 20 families who could not afford to bury their children. We had donated 10,000 books to schools across 3 states. We had established 3 full scholarships that would send kids to college in Lily's name. The event was held at Lily's school on a beautiful spring afternoon. Hundreds of people attended. Families the foundation had helped came to share their stories. Donors came to see the impact of their contributions. Community members came to celebrate Lily's legacy. Lily's former classmates, now 3rd graders, performed a group, reading from one of her favorite books. The school unveiled a memorial garden dedicated in Lily's honor, with a beautiful stone bench engraved with her name and the dates of her too short life. Mrs. Patterson announced that the school library was being renamed the Lily Reading Corner. I stood at the microphone and talked about turning grief into purpose. I said, "When you lose someone you love, you have a choice. You can let the pain destroy you, or you can use it to build something that helps other people." Lily loved to help people. She loved to make people happy. This foundation is how we keep that spirit alive. I talked about the importance of showing up for people in pain, of choosing compassion over convenience, of being present even when it is hard. I never mentioned my family by name, but the lesson was clear to everyone who knew our story. Derek spoke about Lily's love of learning and how the scholarships would help other kids pursue their dreams the way Lily never got to pursue hers. He cried. And so did most of the audience, But they were good tears, healing tears. The community surrounded us with love. Strangers who had donated to the foundation hugged me and told me how much Lily's story had moved them. Families we had helped thanked us for being there in their darkest moments. The whole town had become our family, in a way my blood relatives never were. 2 weeks after the anniversary event, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. It was completely by chance, unavoidable. We were in the same aisle, and there was nowhere to go. She looked older than I remembered, tired, with gray in her hair that had not been there before. She started crying the moment she saw me. She said, "Benita, please. I made a terrible mistake. I have lost everything. Courtney will not speak to me anymore. Your father and I separated. Nobody in the family will talk to us. I was wrong. I know I was wrong." I stood there with my shopping cart, looking at this woman who had given birth to me but had never really been my mother, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just emptiness where she used to be. She continued, "Can we talk? Can I explain? I want to be part of the foundation. I want to help honor Lily. Please, Benita, you are my daughter." I said quietly, "There is nothing to explain. You chose a party over your granddaughter's funeral. That is all I need to know." She reached for my arm, begging, "I want to make this right. I want to be in your life again. I miss you." I stepped back. I said, "The foundation is for people who show up. You did not. You had your chance to be there for Lily, and you chose Courtney's party instead. That choice is permanent." She cried harder. "But I am your mother. Family is supposed to forgive." I looked at her and said, "You taught me what family is not. The people at Lily's funeral, the people who donated to the foundation, the people who sat with me while I grieved, those are my family. You are just someone I used to know." She tried to speak, but I was done. I said, "I hope you find peace, Susan, but you will not find it with me." I walked away and did not look back. I finished my shopping, drove home, and told Derek what had happened. He asked if I was okay. I realized I was. I was better than okay. I was free. I had spent 35 years trying to earn love from people who were not capable of giving it. I had chased approval, tried to be good enough, tried to matter to them. And it had never worked because the problem was never me. Lily had taught me in her 7 short years what real love looked like. Unconditional, joyful, pure. She had loved me completely, just for being her mom. And in losing her, I had learned that love is not something you earn or chase or beg for. It is something freely given by people who truly care. Derek and I started trying for another child. Not to replace Lily, nothing could ever do that, but to honor her by continuing to build a life filled with love. The foundation continued to grow. Lily's memory lived on in every book donated, every family helped, every scholarship awarded. I learned that family is not always about blood. Family is about who shows up, who sits with you in the hospital room, who holds you when you are breaking, who comes to the funeral, who honors your pain instead of dismissing it, who chooses compassion over convenience every single time. My parents, my sister, they made their choice. They chose a party, a facade, their own comfort over being there for a child who deserved to be honored. They have to live with that choice for the rest of their lives. And that is punishment enough. I chose to build something beautiful from something broken. I chose to let Lily's light continue to shine through the work the foundation does. I chose to surround myself with people who know what love actually means. I stopped chasing approval from people who refused to give it. I stopped trying to earn a place in a family that had never made room for me. I stopped apologizing for existing, for having needs, for asking to be treated with basic human decency. And in stopping all of that, I finally became free. Free to grieve, to heal, to build, to love, to live. Free to be the mother Lily deserved to have, even if I only got 7 years with her. Free to be the person I was always meant to be, surrounded by chosen family who actually know how to show up. On quiet evenings, I sit in Lily's memorial garden at her school and read books to the children who gather there. I read the same stories I used to read to Lily, and I see her in every child's face. Her legacy is not in the cruelty of the people who failed her. Her legacy is in the love that continues to spread because of her, in the families who find support when they need it most, in the children who get to go to college because of scholarships in her name. Lily taught me that 7 years of real love is worth more than a lifetime of chasing approval from people who will never give it. She taught me that showing up matters more than anything else. She taught me what family really means. And I will spend the rest of my life living that lesson and sharing it with anyone who needs to hear it. That is how I honor my daughter. That is how I move forward. Not by destroying the people who hurt me, but by building something so beautiful and meaningful that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. I stopped trying to earn love that was never mine to begin with. And that is when I found peace. If you have ever felt unseen by your own family, if you have ever been asked to minimize your pain for someone else's convenience, if you have ever wondered if you are enough, I want you to know, you are. The problem is not you. It has never been you. Some people are incapable of showing up, and that is their failure, not yours. Find the people who do show up. Build your family from the people who choose you every single day. That is where real love lives. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who could not respect your grief or your needs? How did you find the strength to choose yourself when it mattered most? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, healing, and finding strength in the hardest moments. Share this with someone who needs to know they are not alone in choosing themselves over toxic family dynamics. Thank you for listening to Lily's story and for being part of a community that understands the importance of showing up for each other. May you always be surrounded by people who choose you, who honor your pain, and who love you exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves, and remember that you deserve people who show up.